when you talk about issues that face, let's say, adults here with their mental health, I'm talking about good mental health. One of those that probably gets, I guess, a little bit of short shrift because we're still learning a lot about it, is ADHD. And 30, 40 years ago was one thing. Now, we have people who are diagnosed as kids and they're into adulthood, and they've got to go out and work and hold a job, and they want to have a good career. Can you do so with ADHD? And the answer is yes, but there's some certain parameters to be considered with this, and that's something the good doctor is going to do today. Dr. John Braccio with the podcast at drjohnb.com, Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing, and on the other end of our line right now. Good morning. Were you at the football game in Miami?
I was not. My son was, but I was actually back here watching it and loving it. How does that sound? Great day, great win.
I thought about you with that because you've gone to many games at that stadium, and it looked for a time that there was as many Spartan fans there, at least on that one side, as there were Miami fans, which is kind of strange, but it just looked that way.
Well, John, young Dr. John, he was saying that there was a large crowd and very loud there, and he tailgated actually with friends of his when he went to the University of Miami, and also there were some folks that sit behind us at Michigan State at the football games here that met with him and hooked up and tailgated with him down there. So you had a combination of Miami and Michigan State tailgaters at the same time. So it was really great time.
At the end of it, that's not. Yes, that was something. It surprised me. That's all. I'll pivot back here to topic, which is today discussing ADHD, and it's again. It used to be thought of, people would discuss it mainly with kids, but we have millions of adults who have this as well, and are doing very well. So, what is the reason for that, and how has that developed with better understanding of what it is, ADHD?
Well, I think one bit of understanding, a big part, is that when we realize that 50% of children that have ADHD or diagnosed with ADHD, that 50% of them continue this into adulthood. This used to be something that was seen just for children. So now we've learned, and we've certainly seen this in countless evaluations in our office, that we'll evaluate a child, then all of a sudden the adult says, I have all those same issues. I've had these issues my whole life. And then we do an evaluation and find that out. So it's not unusual for persons like in our situation that work with adults to see this. Now, the hallmarks, the general hallmarks, before we get into type work, of ADHD are some combination of inattention, lack of focus, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So how you deal with this, it really determines how successful you're going to be in life. Like, in fact, anybody has to assess themselves, if you think about everybody, in terms of what's the right type of job for me, what type of skill sets do I have, what is the right place, okay? And I think persons with ADHD in the past have really had issues with this because they really didn't exactly know what they had, and they might be going into areas that didn't fit at all. But the types of careers that relate to ADHD, they're jobs generally filled with pressure, tension, uniqueness, variety, competition, and challenge, okay? The following would be typical of these careers with these characteristics: police officers, firefighters, EMTs, ER doctors and nurses, self-employed business owners, risk-taking entrepreneurs, commission salespersons, entertainment industry, hospitality industry, athletes, and computer-based activities that require innovation, challenge, and constant new development. So these are the kinds of jobs that are action. They have action. They're novel. They relate to unique changes even every day. It's not the person who sits in a cubicle in front of a computer processing things or doing the same thing over and over again. So it's a unique person. We're looking at maybe probably it's adult, maybe up to 5%, not really knowing exactly the exact numbers, but we're talking about a huge number of people, numbers, even if not that large of a percentage if we take a country with 330 million people. So it's a big thing in life for all of us, particularly we'll take with the ADHD people today, to find the right type of career that fits the personality that you have, some combination of environmental and the biological components that make you who you are.
There's a stimulus there every day, and every day is different, and you recognize that, and you deal with that well. Versus, so you said these are the ideal. So are there some where you mentioned the cubicle, but are there professions that would be less than ideal, like maybe an assembly line where put widget A on gear B over and over and over again? Would that be a poor choice for a career?
That would be a poor choice unless someone just enjoyed getting into doing the same thing over and over again. If that became an activity that the person really could get energy, but as a whole,
but it could be monotonous too, and that would not be.
That's right. No, I'm saying as a general rule that would not be a good job. Legal, law, things of this variety, and the type of things like every day you go to work and essentially it's the same thing. Okay, like if you're looking at the Grand River go through town every day, okay, that would, and you're looking for a day that won't happen. So jobs that are bureaucratic tend to be monotonous, tend to be routine, which are perfect for a lot of people, but those are not the type of jobs that relate to people that have trouble with focus and attention. And then if you also have hyperactivity and impulsivity, those are clearly not the right type of job. It's the challenge. It's the entrepreneur. It's the police officer. It's the ER doctor and nurse. It's people that enjoy the challenge, the athlete, okay? Like when you think of like a Brady, here he is, 44 years old, still loving the challenge of every day going out. We saw what happened yesterday with the Lions with an old quarterback against them. So it's a certain kind of person. And in life, it's really important, Dave, to find our niche, where we fit, what we like to do, and so if you do have, as we're talking today about the ADHD person, then it is really important to say, wait a minute now, this is who I am. What are the types of jobs that fit my personality? So much of my work or our work over the years are people that are misplaced and they're not happy, even if they're successful. You can be successful in a job, but not like it. You're just kind of stuck. You're there. You're in a routine.
Oh, I've
you
known
just
people.
Can't get out.
Oh, yeah. I've known people like that. They're very good at what they do, but they don't enjoy it. They're good at it, and they're going to get paid for it. But like you always say, you only go around once. If you're going to go around once, and even if you get paid well, at least try to do something both that you're good at and that you don't hate being there. It's just it doesn't have to be your lifelong ambition, I want to be the great painter. That might not pay the bills, but at least make it something you enjoy doing while you're doing it. That seems important, but I know that a lot of people don't get to that particular spot. Is it important for all of these different career choices that if you have a superior, say you're not an entrepreneur, you have a boss, does the boss need to know that you're ADHD? Do they need to have an understanding of that, or is that entirely your business? And do people who are open about it, do they thrive better than those who don't, or vice versa?
Well, I believe any effective boss is going to take into account the characteristics of the staff and get them to work together, okay? So I think if you have ADHD traits, being aware of it and mentioning it, there's really nothing wrong with that. People can see just by being with you the type of personality you are. But I think a good manager is going to notice who you are and try to unleash you in terms of the skills that you have. Okay, I think that becomes a key thing to a manager. I think persons with ADHD do better in jobs where they are given a responsibility and they're allowed to do it. Okay, not someone who is going to be monitored, micromanaged all the time, because that's not how persons function with ADHD. So I think a good manager is going to take that into account and be aware every individual is different. Now, obviously, there are not always good managers, so that's why a person with these characteristics can be very successful in a similar job, it would seem, but not in another setting. So it's a meaning depending on who the manager is. So the manager becomes very, very important to the person getting the job. And that leads to one other thing. it's critical to find a job where if you look ahead to the type of managers that are going to be there who could potentially be there, there's a little danger in finding kind of an ADHD manager who's able to deal with people with ADHD, fully understanding it. Then all of a sudden, if you get somebody who does not have those traits at all and is trying to mold everybody to be like them, then that person with ADHD is in a very, very difficult situation.
Can people with ADHD manage others well?
Well, it depends. Yeah, the answer is yes and no. I think that's kind of a bad legal answer, by the way. But the answer is, I think, if the person is creative, understands how different people are, and tries to plug people in. It's kind of like, if you want a football example, what Mel Tucker has done at Michigan State. He's been able to bring in all these diverse people from all these diverse different schools and brought them in, and apparently has them functioning at a high level, which you really wouldn't expect to put so many new parts into a system and have them work together. Now, that would be an example, and he might be good. I'm not trying to diagnose him, but I think football coaches at his level tend to have a lot of energy, and they tend to be able to, chew gum and walk at the same time and throw a football. So I would say someone with ADHD can manage if, one, they understand themselves and they're able to understand other people. A lot of management is understanding yourself and understanding the people that are assigned to work with you. And that's why a lot of person with ADHD find they can't work in certain settings or they can't find that type of person. And they end up as entrepreneurs, they end up as risk takers, they will end up in careers like small business owner or even police and fire, where that tends to lead to activity and novelty, or in the computer areas. I mean, when you look at the chieftains of ADHD and you find out many of them didn't finish college, and they have a lot of those same traits. So, yeah, it's a fascinating condition. If you have it, you're fortunate in many ways if you can channel it, because you tend to have more energy, and when you can focus, you can outfocus anybody.
And as you mentioned, Mel Tucker, the people he's found. I'm glad he found Kenneth Walker III. Mark me down for being very happy, because that guy's a beast right now on the football field. We bookend it with Michigan State football, but in between, a lot today about the good jobs and the careers that are open and to people who will succeed with ADHD, and there are many of them out there, the careers and those who will succeed. Dr. John Braccio, our guest today, Regional Psychological Services of East Lansing, drjohnb.com. We'll have the podcast there shortly. Always good to talk to you, Doc.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Have a good week, my friend.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
You too. We're back in a moment on the Morning Wake Up. We'll talk about, he alluded to, what happened last night at Lambeau Field. That's next, 1320 WILS.